Hey everybody, this is Alex from the Torch Snuffers podcast, and tonight I am recording a special late night edition of the Secret Scenes Roundup. So for week 3 of Millennials versus Gen X, let's start with the summit and go in chronological order. So for the summit this week, there were 4 Millennials and 4 Gen X that went. The 4 Millennials that went were Figgy, Taylor, Jay, and Will. And Figgy said that she was glad that, quote, all 4 of us got to go. So that means that she considers Will a very close ally. But Will, if you hear his take on it, says that Taylor and Figgy think that they're in charge, but they're not, and that's good for him. So there's obviously a level of discrepancy there. And if we look at the Gen Xers' perspectives on it, Paul, in an exit interview, said that the way that the show characterized the exchange of information between the two tribes was not entirely on the level, because the way the show had it, the millennials were very tight-lipped and didn't give up a lot of information, whereas Cece and David spilled all the beans. But according to Paul, as soon as they got there, the millennials basically admitted that Taylor and Figgy were in a showmance and they couldn't keep their hands off each other. So they're also underestimating the degree to which other people can catch on to what they're doing. And also, Chris talks about who he vibed with. He said that he got the best connection with Taylor and Jay, and that was because they often went up against each other in challenges, and he characterized this particular relationship between them as a, and I quote, man connection. That sounds slightly suggestive to me, and I'll just leave it at that. Other things regarding the millennials before we get to the vote. So Hannah has, in a secret scene, which is a deleted scene from the show and not just a confessional, talks about how Figgy thrives on being fawned over, and she's so used to it that she hasn't learned how to be humble or patient. So that's a pretty entertaining takedown from her. And Adam says that the people coming back from the summit were not giving him all the information that they had, and that he was suspicious. And both Zeke and Michelle talk about who they want to work with going forward. Michelle says she doesn't want to work with Figgy, she would prefer working with Adam, and so that means that when they go to tribal council next, that she will have options. And Zeke basically goes down the entire tribe and talks about process of elimination, who he can and who he cannot work with. So he doesn't think that Adam or Hannah can really help him because they're on the bottom as well. He can't go to Taylor or Figgy because he campaigned against them for an entire week. Michelle and Michaela, he doesn't think really have the legs in the game. So that basically leaves Jay. He thinks that Jay has the best shot to win. And once again, based on the TV edit, that surprises me, but apparently he's doing a very good job of staying in everybody's good graces and lying when he needs to and doing it very convincingly. Now, as for the Gen Xers, so with regards to the vote, Paul went home, obviously, in part because he said something very stupid. When he was trying to convey that if there was any plot against the women, he would inform them, he made it sound like he was willing to go along with that plan. So that was obviously a big reason why he was voted out. But there are 2 other reasons that also contribute. One of those is that, as Sunday put it, she and Jessica had compared notes and figured out that Paul had separately promised them trips to the end. And you never promise conflicting promises to people who you think will crosstalk at any point. So that was a bad move on his part. And also, and this is something that I'm not sure what the source is, it was a commenter, but this is something that I absolutely think is believable is that the women were thinking about what would happen at the next vote. Because, so the people on the bottom are Ken, David, and Cece. If you get rid of Cece, David has an idol. He can't hide the fact that he has an idol. Everybody knows it. And Ken, despite the fact that he is too millennial to really fit in with the Gen Xers, which is why he's sort of on the outs, he's too good at the challenges and at getting fish for them to really seriously believe that the guys would take a shot at him. So they had to take a shot at Paul instead. And finally, talking about what's going to happen next week, apparently, according to the Next Week on Survivor preview, Lucy is going to turn into a mega bitch, and I look forward to that because for the past 3 episodes, she has not even gotten one air confessional. And during her confessional this week, she provided one reason as to why people might find her getting on their nerves. And that is because she doesn't really know how she's perceived in the game. She is perceived as a floater, as evidenced by the fact that neither side was really willing to call her an ally this week. She was not really part of the majority, according to Paul, and she was not really part of the minority, according to all the confessionals we saw from the minority members. But the way she sees it, she's in control of the game, because she's in a 6-person alliance to vote out David, and she's in a 6-person alliance to vote out Paul. So if she acts the way she feels about the way she's in the game, that could come back to bite her, as well as the fact that, and this is something that was postulated about preseason, she's a female bodybuilder, so she doesn't have that much fat to live on, so that's gonna punish her, as well as the fact that she lives on a pretty strict regimen that she no longer has access to for some level of psychic comfort while she's out there. And I look forward to watching her probably get eliminated, because it'll be at least somewhat novel to see someone who has been so invisible crash and burn so much. Or they could surprise me, which would be even better. Anyway, that's all the thoughts I have for this week. See you next week.